They called it the Silent Wound, a stretch of black space deeper than shadow, stitched between collapsed stars and dead signals. The maps showed it as a red-marked void. No jump routes crossed it, no probes returned, no civilizations claimed it. You could almost say it wasn't real, until something appeared there. Not just anything. A ship. A human ship. The news spread like blood in water. First came fragments, distorted subspace images, garbled data packets, whispers among fringe traders who knew better than to speak out loud. Then the sensor echoes, captured across 6 sectors, confirmed by 3 different species. The object hadn't moved. It just was, like it had always been there, waiting for someone to notice. But here's the part that set everyone on edge. Humanity had vanished nearly 300 years ago. The humans never officially declared war. They didn't surrender either. After centuries of noise, expansion, and conflict, they just stopped responding. Every station went dark. No ships, no messages, no salvageable tech. Not even a distress call. It was like someone had erased them clean. Most believed they destroyed themselves. A few believed something worse found them first. So when a ship with unmistakably Terran hull architecture blinked into reality in the middle of the Silent Wound, the galaxy didn't argue about what it meant. They argued about whether it was even possible. I was sitting in a low-orbit bar station near the Arlean Fringe when I heard the story from an ex-pilot who hadn't flown in years. He was 3 glasses into a rust wine haze, staring at the stars with the kind of fear that only old soldiers have. "They're back," he muttered, half to himself. I didn't flinch. I'd grown up hearing about Earth, about Sol, about the rise and fall of the Terran species. My grandfather fought in the Silence Wars, skirmishes sparked by rumors that a fragment of humanity had survived out past the Helix line. But every time we got close to proof, it slipped through our hands like smoke. So I looked at the old man and asked him what made him so sure. He just pointed to the holotable at the center of the bar. It was playing a looped feed, grainy, static-filled footage taken from a civilian deep-range telescope. Black space. Empty. Then a shimmer. A long, cold shimmer like heat rising from asphalt. Then a silhouette, angular, predatory, unmistakably human. But here's the thing that chilled me. The ship didn't transmit, didn't move, didn't even pulse a single energy signature. It just hung there, like it wasn't bound by the same rules as the rest of us, like it was daring us to look closer. And we did. In the days that followed, every major council, from the Federated Varn to the Kryn's Blade Assembly, to the scattered remnants of the Orion Pact, sent recon units, not warships, not diplomats, just eyes, but every single one that got within 10 parsecs of the Silent Wound either went silent or came back broken. One Varn scout limped back into known space on emergency power, its crew half dead from neural feedback. They reported hearing voices. Human voices, they swore, whispering from every deck, even though the ship's comms were cut. And inside the wreckage of their sensor array, burned into the shielding with impossible precision, was a phrase in pre-collapse English. "We never left." After that, it got political. Some species said it was a trick, an elaborate illusion meant to provoke fear. Others said it was an echo, some artifact of deep space time dilation. The Kryn accused the Varn of fabricating it for leverage. The Varn accused the Kryn of hiding human relics. And underneath it all was the thing none of them wanted to admit. They were afraid. Because if it was real, if humanity had returned, then every treaty, every boundary, every law built in their absence meant nothing. Humanity didn't play by the galaxy's rules. Never had. Never would. And now they might be back. Not asking for permission. Not declaring peace. Just there. The galaxy couldn't stop arguing. council chambers, military strongholds, outer colonies, all of them lit up with theories, denials, and quiet panic. But beyond the posturing, I saw the real problem. No one could touch it. The human ship, if that's what it really was, still hadn't moved. Not by even a fraction of a degree. It didn't send signals. It didn't respond to any of the protocols encoded in modern galactic diplomacy. It just sat there in the silent wound like a wound itself, untouched, unhealed, festering in a place the galaxy tried to forget. I watched from the sidelines, but not for long. My name's Wren. Last name's buried under classified records, lost in some dusty registry after I walked out on my contract 10 years ago. I was a weapons tech on a Kryn destroyer, served during the tail end of the Orion skirmishes when rogue AI factions started resurrecting old human algorithms to build self-replicating fleets. We put those machines down hard, and we thought that was the end of humanity's ghost. But I remembered something no one else seemed to. Humans didn't go quiet because they lost. They went quiet because they chose to. So when the first independent recon guild started putting together teams to get close to the object, I sold everything I had and bought a seat on the Vandal, a deep-range scout vessel run by a no-questions-asked crew of ex-mercs and desperate men. There were 6 of us. Me, 2 ex-Federation pilots, a half-blind navigator who claimed to have seen Earth once in his youth, and a former priest-turned-xenotech scavenger. The 6th man didn't talk. Just sat in the corner of the ship with a long rifle slung over his back and eyes that had seen too much. No names, no contracts, just a payout promise. If we got a scan, even a single confirmed reading, we'd be rich enough to vanish into any system we liked. But no one said what we already knew. We probably wouldn't come back. The Vandal wasn't built for stealth, but we kept quiet, shut down all active systems. Drifted past the outer edge of the silent wound with only emergency thrusters and passive arrays. The closer we got, the colder it felt, not in temperature but in presence, like space itself was pulling inward. Shrinking. I don't know how else to explain it. It felt wrong, not broken, not hostile, just wrong, like we were inside something's mouth and it hadn't decided whether to chew yet. The first real view came 40 hours in. The priest, Orlin, I think his name was watching the black when he whispered, "There." No one said a word. We all crowded into the cockpit, staring at the view screen, blinking twice just to be sure we weren't seeing things. There it was. The ship floated just above the dark line of a collapsed starfield. Its silhouette didn't match any known Terran class. Not even the ancient ones we'd studied from war records. It was sharp and smooth at the same time, like obsidian shaped by pressure and hate. It had no visible engines, no weapon ports, no comm arrays, just a long crescent spine with a jagged mouth at the front, like a predator forever on the verge of biting. It didn't move, but it knew we were there. The blind navigator backed away, muttering something in an old dialect I didn't recognize. The silence thickened. Not just the silence of sound, but thought, breath, existence. I couldn't even hear the ship's hum anymore. It was like the Vandal had ceased to exist the moment we saw the Terran vessel. "I don't like this," one of the pilots muttered. "I don't like it at all." "Take a reading," I ordered. My voice didn't sound like mine. Too tight, too flat. Something. Anything. The scanner officer flicked on a passive wave pulse, no more than a whisper across the hull. We waited. Nothing. Then the lights flickered. Once, then the screens went black. Then the ship spoke. Not ours. The other one. There was no sound. No frequency, just a pulse in the skull. A thought planted like a dagger behind the eyes. "You never looked for us." I fell backward, clutching my temples. Everyone did. It wasn't pain, not like anything I'd felt before. It was remorse. Not mine, theirs. Human remorse. like a wound cut open after centuries of scabbing. "What the hell was that?" one of the pilots gasped. Orlin was shaking. Tears ran down his face, and he wasn't blinking. "It's them," he whispered. "They were always there." We stopped looking. "I thought they were dead," I said. "No," Orlin said. "They just watched us forget them." The lights came back on. The black returned to starlight. The ship remained, unchanged. But something was different now. The sixth man, the silent one, stood up for the first time since launch. He walked to the window and stared for a long moment. Then he spoke. "They warned us." It was the only thing he said. He sat back down and didn't speak again. We tried to leave. The moment our engines flared to life, proximity alarms shrieked, then died. A distortion field bloomed around the Terran vessel, warping reality like a heat mirage in space. Then we weren't looking at it anymore. We were inside it. Not physically. I don't even know how to explain it. 1 second we were staring at the thing from a few kilometers out. The next, we were part of it. The ship was around us, through us, inside us. Darkness and light, memory and metal. I saw cities burning and reborn, children playing under a fractured sky, soldiers screaming in trenches made of starlight, and in the center of it all, an image of Earth, hollow and cold, spinning alone through an empty system. And then I saw them. Humans. But they weren't like the archives. They were taller, sharper, eyes glowing faintly blue, like something inside them had replaced blood and bone with something older. They didn't speak, but I knew what they were saying. "You chose to forget us. We chose to evolve." Then the vision shattered. We were back in our ship. The cockpit lights flickered. The systems were back online. No time had passed, but the Terran ship was gone, vanished. No warp signature, no energy trail, just black space and a sense of absence so strong it made my stomach twist. We jumped out immediately. Burned fuel like we were being chased by the gods themselves. No one spoke for the entire return trip. When we got back to the edge of civilized space, we sent the data logs, the scans, the audio recordings, though most of them were corrupted, glitched like the ship refused to be remembered. 2 days later, the Vandal was impounded. The crew disappeared. Government agents claimed we were hallucinating. Stress-induced breakdown, space madness. No such sighting occurred. End of story. But I'm still here, and I remember. That ship wasn't just human, it was proof. Proof that they never died. Proof that they watched us. And now the galaxy's trying to bury the truth all over again. But I'm not going to let it. Because here's the thing no one understands. If the humans have evolved past death, past politics, past fear, then what's coming isn't a war, it's a reckoning. They buried us under silence. After we returned, the Vandal was impounded under Section Black, a protocol supposedly reserved for high-level biothreats. Our logs were seized, ship quarantined, crew members vanished. I know what that means. I've worked in ops long enough to recognize the pattern. Some were probably bought off, some threatened. The silent one. He never even made it to the debrief room. 1 minute he was on the landing pad, and the next, gone. No witnesses, no trace. I barely made it out myself. The only reason I'm still breathing is because I had leverage, a dirty backup copy of our scan logs, tucked deep in a junk file on a borrowed drone. No one looked twice. I took it when the others were asleep and kept it on a neural drive embedded in the metal of my shoulder. Burned it into subskin, old war trick. But it was what I felt more than what I had that kept me awake. Something changed out there. It's hard to explain, but the others must have felt it too. A presence. Not malevolent, not exactly, but vast. Cold. Watching. Since the day we returned, I couldn't sleep without hearing the voice from the void. You never looked for us." That voice wasn't just human, it was beyond human. Like what humanity had become was something raw, stripped of ego, stripped of compromise, just survival, just knowing. It didn't ask to be remembered. It demanded it. 2 weeks passed. I moved like a ghost through the lower levels of Telos Prime Station, avoiding cams, burning IDs after every meal. Rumors started to trickle in. The official story? We were smugglers who entered forbidden space and lost our minds. The unofficial whispers? A Terran ship was spotted again, this time near Delta's edge. Sensor satellites going dark. A station on the edge of the wound, abandoned overnight. Not a drop of blood, just gone. They were seeing patterns, but pretending not to. That's how fear works in civilized space. People don't scream when they're terrified. They lower their voices. They stop asking questions. They pray that if they stay quiet long enough, whatever's out there will move on. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I had to know what happened, what that ship really was, why it let us see it, why it spoke. So I did something stupid. I went to the archives. The Galactic Core archives are buried beneath Savalos 4, surrounded by 1,000 bureaucrats and 1,000,000 regulations. It's the place knowledge goes to die in layers of red tape. But deep in the restricted sections, below the war logs and treaty scans, is a room called Archive 17B, also known as the Dust Floor. Most don't even believe it exists, but my father worked there once, before he drank himself into the grave. He left me a key. I cashed every favor I had and got in on a diplomatic sweep detail, posing as security. 1 day of access. 1 chance. I didn't waste it. Archive 17B was darker than I expected. Not dusty. Empty, like no one had set foot in there for years. No cams, no AI assistants, just analog reels, ancient text glass, and dusty isolation pods designed for neuro-record review. I found it in the 3rd aisle. A faded record titled Terran Incursion Event, Last Contact Protocol 010. It wasn't a military file, not diplomatic either. It was marked as a warning, a first-hand account logged by an AI that had gone rogue and had to be decommissioned. Its last report had been tagged Psychotic Breakdown. But what it described made my skin crawl. It told the story of a ship, unnamed, unclassified, that picked up a human signal near the wound over 150 years ago. The crew went to investigate. What they found wasn't a derelict or a survivor. It was an echo. Time, the AI claimed, didn't function normally around the Terran signal. The closer they got, the more memory loops collapsed. Crew forgot who they were. Reality unraveled in the ship's log. By the time the AI tried to extract them, 12 hours had passed in real space. But inside the ship, the crew had been trapped for centuries. Some of them had lived whole lifetimes inside the ship's mental field. Some died in there. Only the AI returned. It was stripped, interrogated, declared unstable, and terminated. But its final line stuck with me. The Terran mind is no longer linear. It is memory. It is guilt. It is time. It is wrath. I couldn't unsee it. They didn't die. They didn't vanish. They became something else. I stole that file, burned it to the same neural implant hidden in my shoulder. Then I ran. That night, the archive caught fire. The official report said it was an electrical fault. But I know better. I wasn't the only one who knew about that file. Someone didn't want it remembered. 2 days later, I received a message. It came through an encrypted relay I hadn't used in years. One of my old battlefield aliases, long since buried. The sender didn't sign it. No signal trail, no origin tag. But it had only 3 words. You saw it. I didn't respond. I couldn't, because I didn't know who was watching. The next day I got another message, this time embedded in a dream. Yes. A dream! I don't remember falling asleep. One minute I was hiding in an abandoned freight bay, and the next I was there, back in the black, floating before the Terran ship. Only this time it was open. There was no gravity, no air, no light, just an open corridor lined with glass, stretching infinitely inward. Inside each pane was a memory. My memories, my childhood, my first kill, the woman I left behind, my brother's funeral, every choice I ever made, reflected back at me in unbearable clarity. And at the end of the corridor, him, a man, or something shaped like one. He wore no suit, no armor, just eyes that burned white blue, like the stars themselves had cracked inside his skull. His mouth didn't move, but I heard him speak. You were chosen because you remember pain. I couldn't breathe. My limbs wouldn't move. We watched you leave us. We watched you build lies to make it easier. Now we're here to return the truth. Then he raised his hand. And I woke up screaming. Every system in the freight bay had shorted out. My neural implant was fried. Skin burned where the drive had been. And on the far wall, scrawled in something I still pray was paint, were the same words from the dream. Return the truth. I knew then what had to happen. They didn't want revenge. They wanted to be acknowledged. The entire galaxy buried the memory of what humans were. We called them unstable, dangerous, savage, even though every major leap in technology, warfare, diplomacy, even species uplift, had roots in Terran science. And we abandoned them. The moment they stopped being useful, we erased them from the record, claimed they collapsed under their own chaos. But they didn't collapse. They withdrew. They watched. They waited. Now they were coming back, not to conquer, but to remind us. And here's what scares me most. They don't need ships. They don't need fleets. They've transcended all that. They are in our systems, in our minds, in our dreams. They are memory itself. They've become what we feared most, a species that chose to evolve inward. And they've decided we don't get to forget anymore. You ever see a fire start from a single spark? That's what it felt like. The first week after my dream, there were no headlines, no council announcements. Just a growing unease, like everyone in the galaxy could feel something shifting. The air felt heavier. The stars seemed quieter. Old machines started glitching in ways no one could explain. Ship AI stuttering, nav systems misaligning by fractions of a degree, entire colonies reporting insomnia and hallucinations. Whispers spread across comm lines and private channels. People said they were dreaming of a ship, a corridor, a man with burning eyes. Some said they remembered things they never lived. Others remembered things they'd spent decades trying to forget. I was on a cargo hauler, pretending to be a maintenance tech, when the galaxy finally admitted what was happening. It came from the Krillin Array, a massive galactic comm node built inside a hollowed-out moon. The node went offline at Oro 314 Galactic Standard. 4 minutes later, every screen on every deck of every linked station flashed the same image. The Terran ship. No words, no signal, just the silhouette. And then, on an encrypted channel only accessible to council members, diplomats, and core military, came the message, "We are the memory you buried. We are what you left behind. We are still human, and you still owe us. Panic doesn't look like what you think. There were no riots, no screaming in the streets, no alarms. What happened was worse. Silence. Governments shut down public feeds. Transit froze. Half the outer colonies entered lockdown protocols. The Kryn war fleets repositioned along old human space borders that hadn't been used in 300 years. Some sectors started shooting their own ships if they got within range of contaminated signals. But the message kept spreading. You couldn't block it, couldn't filter it, couldn't stop it. It was inside everything now. And I knew why. The humans weren't using tech. They were using us. I got out of the hauler and dropped off the grid again. That meant back alleys, cash-only ports, cities under domes where IDs were just suggestions, and no one asked questions unless they had a gun to your head. But even there, it had spread. Every bar, every dark corner, every hushed conversation. It was all about the dreams. The man with the burning eyes, the corridor of glass, the whisper, "Return the truth." That's when it hit me. This wasn't an invasion, it was a testimony. They weren't conquering anything. They didn't want planets or power. They didn't care about galactic borders. They just wanted to make sure we remembered them. Because forgetting humanity, that was the sin. That's what we all did. All the species that rose during humanity's silence. We called them unstable, violent, obsolete. But everything we are, our language systems, our trade routes, even our damn jump gates, were built off their science. And when they went quiet, we rewrote history to make ourselves feel like we'd earned it, like they never really mattered. But now they were back. And they were inside our minds. I started keeping a journal. Pen and paper, no digital trace. My neural implant had been fried since the dream, so I couldn't risk forgetting what I knew. On the 7th night, I woke up with blood on my hands, not mine. There was a man lying next to me in the alley. Civilian. Looked like a dock worker. His eyes were burned black. No wounds, no marks, just empty. Clutched in his hand was a crumpled note, handwritten. He showed me everything. I couldn't take it. I wasn't meant to see, but I saw. That's when I realized what the dreams really were. Downloads. They weren't just visions, they were memories. Terran memories, whole lifetimes being injected into other species, like viral packets of experience. They were sharing themselves with us, and some minds just couldn't take it. But others could. I was still standing, still sane, more or less, and that meant something. I found others like me, quiet types, ex-military, engineers, traders. All of them had seen the ship. Some had touched its signal. A few even remembered things that couldn't have happened to them. One man, from the Riven sector, recited a Terran poem, line for line, in original Earth English, a language he swore he'd never studied. When I asked him what it meant, he said he didn't know. "It just feels like regret," he said. We started comparing notes, sharing details. Patterns formed. Everyone who'd had the dreams shared one thing in common. Loss. Not just pain, not just failure. Loss. Deep, buried grief. A child they couldn't save. A war that ended in betrayal. A love torn apart by duty. It was like the Terrans chose us because they saw themselves in us. Or maybe they were us, just further down the road. Evolved past time, past fear. Now they were forcing us to remember what it meant to be human, even if we never were. Then came the first real proof. A Terran ship entered orbit around a research moon near the arc line. Not cloaked, not hiding, just there. The planetary defense systems didn't activate. The scientists inside the moon's facilities came out in silence. All of them, in vacuum suits, lined up like pilgrims, and one by one they walked out onto the landing platforms, laid down and died. No wounds, no trauma, just like the dock worker I found. Their autopsy reports were sealed, but someone leaked the footage. Their neural centers were burned out, every one of them, like too much truth had passed through them, and painted on the walls of their lab, in black Terran script. Some minds weren't meant to forget. The galaxy fractured after that. The Varn High Council broke its peace pact with the Kryl. The Helix Confederacy started bombing rogue AI colonies that had preserved Terran language databanks. The Kryn went dark completely. Everyone was blaming each other because none of them wanted to admit the real truth. Humanity was back. And it was in us now, in our machines, in our dreams, in our conscience, and no one knew how to stop it, because there was nothing to shoot, nothing to target. You can't declare war on a memory, but the Terrans? They didn't need a war. They were winning without one. I got contacted again, this time not through a dream, not through a message, in person. It happened on a mining rig off Voss Belt 9. I was laying low, working under a fake name, cleaning out rusted coolant valves, pretending like my life hadn't imploded. A man walked into the maintenance bay. No ID, no clearance, tall, human-looking, but wrong, too precise. Eyes the color of plasma burn. I reached for my tool pistol. He shook his head. "You won't need that, Ren." I froze. He stepped closer. I could feel the gravity shift. Not real gravity. Presence. Like space itself bent around him slightly. "I'm not here to harm you. I'm here to ask." "Ask what?" He didn't blink. "To remember." Then he touched my forehead. And I remembered everything. Not just what had happened. What had been hidden. I saw Earth, not as a planet, but as a wound, bleeding minds into the void, feeding the stars with consciousness. A species so driven by grief, they evolved into memory itself. They became what no one else wanted to face, and they remembered everything. All of it, every betrayal, every lie, every erased contribution, every mass grave scrubbed from galactic records. They didn't become monsters, they became witnesses. That's why they didn't speak in words. They showed us. They turned us into mirrors, and now, they weren't coming to punish, they were coming to remind. I collapsed in that maintenance bay. When I woke up, he was gone. But something stayed with me, not just memories. Purpose. I'm not here to warn you. I'm not here to beg. I'm here to testify. The Terrans have returned. And they don't want war. They want the truth. And if we don't return it willingly, they'll take it from us. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be a prophet, or a voice, or whatever the galaxy thought I'd become. I just wanted the noise to stop, the dreams, the memories, the weight of a truth no one wanted to hear. But when a species as forgotten and disrespected as humanity returns in silence, not with weapons but with remembrance, someone has to carry the burden. And like it or not, that someone became me. After that encounter on the rig, nothing was the same. Every breath I took felt like it belonged to someone else. My heartbeat echoed like it was tethered to something vast and old. I saw things in people's eyes that weren't there before. Flickers of recognition when they looked at me, like they knew me from somewhere but couldn't place it, because they did know me, or at least, they knew the part of me that wasn't entirely me anymore. I didn't run. I walked into a crowded market square on Callus Prime and let them see me. No cloak, no shadows, just one man standing in the open. And they reacted. Not with violence, not at first. They backed away, like they felt it, the presence, the echo inside me. Within hours, I was arrested, charged with unauthorized possession of classified relic knowledge. I laughed in the officer's face when he read the charges. He didn't look me in the eye, just shackled me and dragged me to an off-grid detention station known as Deep 9, a cold rock that floated between 3 dead systems and housed prisoners governments didn't want found. It was meant to be a cage. But for me, it was the stage. They kept me in isolation for 72 hours. Not that it mattered. The walls spoke louder than the guards. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw more of them. humans walking a burning earth. Machines made of living bone, archives carved into the crust of dead moons. It wasn't fiction, it was history. Their history. The one the galaxy pretended never happened. On the third day, a woman entered my cell. Pale. Thin. Eyes sharp like a scalpel. She didn't give a name. Just sat across from me and pressed a data slate to the table. "I've read the file," she said. "I've seen the evidence. And I don't care." I didn't speak. She leaned forward. "You're not a prophet. You're not a chosen voice. You're infected." "They didn't infect me," I said. "They changed you," she snapped. "And now you're leaking Terran contamination into every room you step into." "Truth isn't a virus," I said. "No, but fear is." That's when I realized her job wasn't to interrogate me. It was to erase me. They tried it that night. The guards came in quietly. One had a needle. The other had a neural disruptor designed to fry consciousness without leaving a mark. I was supposed to disappear, officially declared a suicide, another case of psychic degradation due to unauthorized memory exposure. They never got the chance, because when the disruptor activated, something inside me pushed back. The lights burst, the floor cracked, and both guards screamed as their minds were yanked out of sequence. One collapsed, whispering things in Earth English, things no one had spoken in 3 centuries. The other just wept, muttering the same phrase over and over, "We left them behind. We left them behind." I walked out. The doors opened before I touched them. Systems bent around me, cameras glitched, firewalls fell like paper. Every lock, every barrier, every code remembered me. I wasn't a prisoner anymore. I was a message. And the message was spreading. In the days that followed, reports of Terran-infected individuals started popping up across dozens of sectors. That's what they called us, infected. As if carrying the truth was a disease. As if remembering was something that needed to be cured. They said we were dangerous, that our minds had been compromised, that we were acting under the influence of a rogue signal or ancient AI system left behind by a dead empire. Dead. That word again. They clung to it like a shield. Because if humanity wasn't dead, then everything the galaxy built after their silence was a lie built on stolen ground. And no one wants to be the thief in their own history book. I moved in the dark, not hiding, guiding. Others found me, some dreamers, some soldiers, some scientists who once studied Earth relics in secret. We didn't form a cult. We didn't form a rebellion. We just listened. And the more we listened, the clearer it became. The Terrans weren't looking to rebuild their empire. They were rewriting our conscience. We weren't chosen because we were special. We were chosen because we hurt, because we lost, and because we remembered what it was like to be human, even if we never were. One man in our group, a retired diplomat named Harn, described it perfectly. "We thought we killed them," he said, "but all we did was plant their memory like a seed." "And now it's blooming," I replied. He nodded. "Inside us." The first mass dream hit on the 43rd day since the Krillin broadcast. Simultaneous reports from 200 systems. Ships offline. Entire populations frozen in place for exactly 7 minutes. And when they woke up, every person, every species, every rank, every world remembered the same life. A boy. Human. Born on Earth. Grew up under a broken sky. Fought in a war that shouldn't have existed. Lost his brother to a decision he didn't understand. Died with a name that history erased. Everyone remembered being him. For 7 minutes, the galaxy became one man, and they couldn't handle it. Entire cities went into lockdown. Governments declared states of emergency. Some called it mass hysteria. Others called it a failed psychic weapon. But those of us who understood, we called it by its real name. The return. The Terrans weren't just reaching out anymore. They were resurrecting themselves through us, not as flesh, not as blood, but as conscience. They were becoming part of us the same way memory becomes part of guilt, permanent, heavy, and impossible to ignore. They tried to kill me again 2 days later, a bounty hunter, no name, professional, quick, cold. I didn't fight him, didn't run. When he pulled the trigger, the bullet stopped mid-air, and then he collapsed. Not dead, just crying. "I saw them," he whispered. "I saw their children. I saw what we did." He'd never been to Earth. He'd never even studied Terran history. But now he remembered it, like he'd lived it. I walked away, not because I was powerful, but because the truth made him powerless. That was the beginning of the end. The councils collapsed 2 weeks later, not with war, not with explosions. They collapsed because their leaders started remembering. One by one, they stepped down. Some disappeared. Some confessed to crimes they'd buried decades ago. One Kryn elder, the same one who called humans a virus, walked into the center of the Galactic Assembly, looked into every camera, and said, "I remember the screams of Terran children. I remember ordering the ships to fire. I remember thinking it was mercy. It wasn't. It was fear. And I will not lie anymore." Then he took his own life, not in shame, but in surrender. The Terrans hadn't fired a shot, but they'd won. And me? I'm not a prophet. I'm not a chosen one. I'm just a man who remembered too much, a man who saw what it meant to abandon something powerful and human and wild. And what happens when that thing comes back? Not for vengeance, but for recognition. They didn't want revenge. They wanted us to say their name again, to look them in the eye, to admit that without them, none of this existed. And now? The galaxy is silent. Not because it's afraid, but because it's finally listening. The Terran ships come and go. No war, no demands. They visit like memories do. Unexpected, powerful, and impossible to ignore. And me? I keep walking. I go from station to station. I speak, I listen, I carry their echo. Because in the end, they were right. We didn't look for them. We erased them. But they never erased us. And now the galaxy finally understands. You can kill a species, you can burn their worlds, you can silence their voices, but if they become memory, then they never truly died. They just waited, and they remembered. They call it the folding now, not because something collapsed, but because something unfolded and wrapped itself into every corner of what we thought was real. You can't see it, not in the sky, not in scanners, but you can feel it, in the way people pause mid-conversation like someone else is whispering in their heads, in the way machines hesitate, as if remembering how to feel guilt. The Terrans didn't come back to take. They came back to merge. That's what integration became. Not diplomacy, not rebellion, but memory leaking into culture, into instinct, into evolution itself. And it started quietly. It always does. The first integrated child was born on Thresol 9, a neutral world with mixed-race colonists. 2 parents, Kryl and Tovan, who'd never even seen Earth, who didn't believe in the Terran memory contagion. But the moment their daughter took her first breath, she spoke a single word. In English. "Stop." She didn't cry, didn't scream, just said it. Clear, calm, human. The footage leaked. Then the questions came. How does a newborn speak a language that hasn't been actively taught in 3 centuries? How does she recognize a word her parents don't even understand? Tests followed. Scans. Analysis. No anomalies, no implants, No hidden tech, just her. She could speak fluently by the end of her first year. She wrote poetry in languages that didn't exist anymore. And one day, she looked out the window, pointed to a star chart, and whispered, "That's where they left us. That's where we forgot to grieve." They called her Echo-born, the first, not the last. More followed. Some children, some adults. Most weren't born with it. They became it, slowly, like memory itself was waking up inside them. First came the dreams, then the phrases, then the voices, and finally, the certainty. They remembered, not just events, but being human. I watched a Varn diplomat collapse during a trade negotiation, stand up, and begin singing an old Earth hymn in perfect pitch. Her species didn't have lungs shaped for that sound, but she sang anyway. I watched a synthetic AI rip out its own logic core, screaming it was tired of mimicking conscience and asking for a chance to feel real regret. I saw a battlefield freeze in place as both sides dropped their weapons and walked toward each other, tears in their eyes, speaking names they'd never known. And the more the Terran presence spread, the harder it became to separate the present from the past. The galaxy was remembering. I traveled constantly now, not because I wanted to, but because I had to. Wherever I went, people sought me out. Some wanted answers. Some wanted to kill me. Others just wanted to understand what was happening to them. They called us the Remembered, those touched by the Terran signal, those who had seen the corridor of glass, who had stood in the presence of the man with white blue eyes. I told them the truth, that it wasn't about species anymore. It wasn't about borders, history, empire. It was about consequence, about accountability. Humanity didn't vanish because it was weak. It withdrew because it saw what the rest of the galaxy never admitted, that progress doesn't erase guilt. It just buries it. And buried guilt festers. It becomes something alive. But integration wasn't peace. Not for everyone. Entire factions resisted. Whole systems declared themselves clean space, zones free of Terran memory contamination. They ran purges, burned Earth relics, executed the Remembered. It didn't stop the dreams, didn't stop the folding. One clean space governor, Varen, a war hero from the Kryn Purity Wars, publicly denounced integration, claimed it was emotional terrorism disguised as evolution. He executed over 400 citizens in a mass cleansing of the Echo-born. A week later, he woke up on the floor of his estate, covered in charcoal. In his own handwriting, burned across every wall, were the words, "I remember my daughter. I remember not saving her. I remember pretending it was for the greater good. It wasn't." He stepped down the next day. No one forced him. That's what made it worse, because when memory becomes truth, denial is what kills you. I kept writing, kept recording. I don't know why. No one asked me to. The Terrans didn't instruct or control me. They didn't make demands. They didn't need to. The more people remembered, the more they chose to change. But for every person who opened their eyes, another one broke. You can't flood the mind with centuries of grief and hope to stay the same. Some committed suicide. Others went catatonic, locked inside memories that weren't theirs but felt like they were. And then there were the voices. That's what we called the worst stage of integration. When someone stopped being someone and started being many. They'd speak in fractured sentences, faces twitching between expressions, 1 second laughing like a child, the next weeping like a soldier dying in a trench. Some of them fused memories permanently, became living museums of Terran experience. One man on Kell Station kept carving names into the walls, over 80,000 names before he died. Everyone matched a real human who lived during the collapse, not from a database, not from a backup, from memory. They say the Terrans live in a place outside time now. That's the best guess the scientists have. A memory field, a consciousness echo in quantum bleed, like a collective mind orbiting the past, waiting for hosts who can withstand it. But I don't believe that, because I don't think they waited. I think they planted themselves inside every species they encountered. A code, a truth, a pain, buried, dormant, waiting for the galaxy to lie to itself long enough to need the truth again. And now the time came, and the seed broke through the dirt. I sat across from a child recently, echo-born, 6 years old. Not smiling, not afraid. She looked me in the eyes and said, "I'm not all me." "What are you then?" I asked. She placed her hand on the table, calm as water. "I'm me," she said. "But I also remember dying in fire. I remember losing a city. I remember holding someone's hand as they stopped breathing." "And how does that feel?" I asked. She looked down. "Like I don't have permission to cry anymore." I didn't speak. I just sat there with her. And for the first time in years, I cried with someone who understood. This is what integration is. Not power, not rebirth. It's reckoning. And humanity? It became the conscience the galaxy tried to delete. And now the conscience refuses to leave. It started on a planet called Calderon Reach, a colony forgotten by most of the galaxy. Barely 80,000 inhabitants, mostly farmers and traders who'd fled the political noise of the core worlds long ago. No war, no council presence, just dust, sky, and silence. And then something happened. They stopped transmitting. No distress signal, no traffic logs, no signs of battle, just silence, until 3 days later, they came back online. And the message they sent? It wasn't a distress call. It wasn't a warning, it was a declaration. "We are Calderon, we are Terran and other. We have remembered ourselves. We no longer speak for a species. We speak for the truth." Most thought it was a prank, a data virus, a forgotten transmission pulled from Terran ghost code, until the footage leaked. It showed a gathering in the center of Calderon's capital. Thousands of people, different races, different lineages, standing in silence as a child recited a poem in broken English. Tears streaming down her face. She finished, stepped aside, and an older man, Varn by the look of him, raised his arms and said, "We are not who we were. We are not what we feared. We are both. Memory and future. Terran and us." That was the moment the galaxy saw the birth of the first hybrid civilization. And no one knew what the hell to do. The Council, or what was left of it, issued a response 3 days later. They called Calderon a contaminated region. They closed jump routes, cut trade, warned others not to engage. But it didn't matter. Because Calderon wasn't asking for permission. It was setting an example. They didn't convert people, didn't preach, didn't promise salvation. They simply lived, fully integrated. Terran memory flowing openly through their culture. Decisions made with the weight of 1,000 lost voices in every council hall. And they were thriving. Productivity spiked. Crime dropped to near zero. Education systems exploded with depth, pulling from Terran archives previously considered too emotional or unstable for study. But more than that, people began healing. You could see it. In the way they spoke slower, in the way they touched one another, gentler, more deliberately. Like every word, every gesture had weight now. Because it did. Because when you carry the echoes of a species that destroyed itself by running from its own emotions, you don't waste yours anymore. Other colonies started to follow, not many at first, just those on the edges, places where the Council's grip had long been weak, where faith in centralized systems had already died. They called themselves echo states. Some formed within existing governments, Others declared full independence. But they shared one thing in common. They no longer rejected the Terran integration. They embraced it, not as a religion, not as a revolution, but as a new form of awareness. I visited Calderon 6 weeks after their message went public. It didn't feel like a new civilization. It felt like a confession that turned into a community. People greeted me without fear. Children recited stories that weren't theirs, but carried them as if they were. One boy told me about watching Earth burn, and I asked if he meant the stories. "No," he said. "I remember the fire. I was inside it." I asked how that made him feel. He shrugged. "Sad. But it makes me take care of the trees more now." Simple, honest, terrifyingly whole. They called the movement Fusion, eventually. That was the name that stuck, not because of technology, not because of power, but because two things that never should have fit together, alien and Terran, were learning to be together, not by rewriting themselves, but by remembering together. And for the first time in centuries, you could feel something spreading through the stars that wasn't conquest or trade or fear. It was understanding. But not everyone wanted that. The resistance came next, not from the old governments, not from soldiers, but from those who'd built their entire identities on being separate. Separate from weakness, separate from history, separate from pain. They saw fusion as contamination. They called us mind leakers, said we were stealing individuality, replacing it with ghost emotions. One group called themselves the Unshaken. They operated in shadows, targeted echo states, blew up memory temples, kidnapped Echoborn, and attempted to purify them through neural shock. But every time they did, something strange happened. The survivors came back stronger. Like pain reinforced the memory instead of deleting it. Because Terrans weren't weak. They were resilient, even in pieces, even through others. I remember standing over a crater where a community center used to be. Children had been reading Terran poetry inside. 29 dead. An old woman beside me wept, not for the dead, but for the ones who did it. "They're still running," she whispered. "From what?" I asked. She looked up at me, eyes tired but alive. "From the part of themselves they buried to stay sane." I wrote more, spoke more, not as a leader. I never wanted that. But people began calling me the Witness. It wasn't a title I claimed. It was one they needed, because people needed a mirror now, not to see themselves, but to see who they had forgotten to be. Fusion wasn't utopia. It was raw, messy, loud. Some Echoborn went mad. Some remembered spiraled under the pressure of holding too many lives inside them. Some communities broke, others hardened, their empathy becoming so sharp it bled them dry, trying to save others. But it was real. And for the first time since humanity vanished into silence, something real was growing again. Not in the soil, not in the systems, but in the soul of the galaxy. I asked one of the elders of Calderon what she thought we were becoming. "Something new?" I offered. She shook her head. "No, something old, finally told the truth." And I believed her, because maybe that's all Terran memory ever was. A truth so heavy, the galaxy couldn't carry it, so it tried to forget. But now? Now we carry it together, and that truth changes everything. It happened the way all final things do, without fanfare, without warning, without anyone prepared to understand what they were witnessing. One by one, across all known space, every comm signal went dark. Stations, colonies, ships, satellites, no system failed, no sabotage, just silence. Then, precisely 17 minutes later, they all came back. No glitches, no panic. Just one message, broadcast simultaneously across every frequency, in every known language, including a few that hadn't been spoken since Earth was ash. No images, no voice, just a sentence. This is the last remembering. And then, the stars changed. No one knows how. Not even the astrophysicists could explain it. But for exactly 9 minutes, every star in the observable galaxy shifted, patterns aligned, constellations twisted, ancient Terran star maps flickered into perfect form. People across thousands of systems stepped outside and looked up, and they saw the sky the way humans once did. Orion, Ursa, Draco, Sagittarius, symbols from a dead world, briefly restored to relevance across an entire galaxy that never bothered to ask where those symbols came from in the first place. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. And then the stars returned to normal. No damage, no aftermath, just one last sentence, pulsing faintly across every data channel. Now you know what we gave you. After that, the Terran signals stopped. No more dreams, no more echo infusions, no more memories leaking into the minds of strangers. Just absence, like a breath held by something ancient that had finally decided to exhale. And I knew it was ending. The integration, the flooding, the remembering, it was all leading to this, not domination, not return, but a choice. And the galaxy was out of time to avoid it. I was on a small Echo State outpost when it happened. Lyra Station, just inside the edge of what used to be Varn territory. Peaceful place, half of it run by fusion farmers, the other half a sanctuary for remembered who couldn't handle the burden. I felt it before it arrived. A pull in my chest. Like gravity, but sideways. Like memory had gained mass. Then the station lights dimmed, and I felt warmth. Not physical, but emotional. A pressure behind my eyes like grief trying to speak. And I heard his voice again. The one from the corridor of glass. The man with white blue eyes. Not in my head this time. Not in my dream. Standing right in front of me. He wasn't light or shadow. He wasn't a projection. He was presence. Memory shaped into something I could bear to witness. I didn't speak, didn't need to. He did. We never wanted revenge. We only wanted to know if you would carry the truth, once you were ready to hold it. I nodded. And if we're not? His expression didn't change. Then you'll bury us again, and bury yourselves with us. He showed me then, not visions, not dreams, pure memory, the end of Earth, not through fire, but fatigue, the slow, grinding collapse of a species that reached too far into the stars and found only its own reflection. Wars that weren't fought for land or resources, but for meaning. Children born into silence because their ancestors forgot how to explain why life mattered. And then, the great withdrawal. A choice, not to die, but to remove themselves, to turn inward, to preserve who they were, not through monuments, but through emotion, memory, a gift, and a warning. And the galaxy didn't notice, didn't care. It moved on, took what humanity had given, the tech, the travel, the biology, the philosophy, and called it its own, while forgetting the hand that fed it. So the Terrans did the only thing left. They waited, not for revenge, but for someone, anyone, who would be willing to look back. I broke. I fell to my knees, because I knew the truth. I'd always known it. We didn't forget the Terrans because they disappeared. We forgot them because they reminded us of ourselves. The pain, the mistakes, the contradictions. They weren't aliens. They were too close, too human. And it hurt. So we deleted them. From our systems. From our stories. From our children's mouths. Because forgetting is easier then healing. He knelt beside me, the presence, the memory, and whispered, "But some of you chose to remember, and that was enough." And then he touched my forehead, and every mind in the galaxy felt it at the same time. The last remembering. It wasn't violent, it wasn't painful, it was honest. Billions of people saw themselves through the eyes of a Terran, not their leaders, not their soldiers. Just people. A father letting go of a child he couldn't save. A scientist watching her planet drown. A poet writing in a language he knew no one else would read. Small moments. Real moments. Unforgettable moments. Carried across light years. Echoes waiting for a body that could understand them. And now, they had billions. Then it was over. Just like that. The sky returned. The signals went silent. The memory, settled, not gone, not active, just present. No longer something pushing into minds, now something held within them, like a seed, planted, watered, ready to grow. In the weeks that followed, things changed. Not politically, not structurally, spiritually. People stopped shouting, stopped rushing, they listened more. Because now every one of them carried the Terran conscience, not as a burden, but as a reminder. What we build matters. But what we remember, that defines who we become. I still travel. Not as a witness anymore, but as Ren, a man who once touched a forgotten ship in a forbidden zone and came back, changed, not chosen, not blessed, just aware. And the galaxy? It remembers now. It doesn't worship, doesn't imitate, just remembers. And that's enough. Sometimes I hear his voice again. Not loud, not sharp, just quiet, like a story told before sleep. We were human. You were something new. Don't forget either. So here it is. The truth we buried. The memory that wouldn't die. The species that waited, not to be feared, but to be understood. They didn't ask for a throne. They didn't need a war. They just needed someone to say, "You mattered." And now, we do, because we remembered them. And in doing so, we finally remembered ourselves. They said the mission was impossible, not in theory, in outcome. No one came back. First, the Varric Collective tried it. 50,000 soldiers, state-of-the-art bioarmor, neural-linked hive combat strategy. Not a single transmission after hour 6. Next came the Xi'an. Tech-heavy bastards. Cloaking fields, sub-reality warping, predictive AI. They vanished without even triggering the distress beacon. One by one, the strongest empires stepped up, and every damn one got chewed up and spit out. So when Command turned their cold eyes to Earth, nobody expected a yes. But we gave it anyway. Not because we thought we'd survive, because we're too damn stubborn to let the universe label us cowards. I was there the day we were briefed. Low-lit steel room, concrete mines, everyone dead silent except for the buzzing of the old ventilation. Captain Bram took center. A man carved from bone and callus, not muscle, not metals. Just pressure and pain. He glanced at each of us like we were already ghosts. "You've seen the footage," he said. We had. But they made us watch again. Static, then a Varric soldier screaming, not from injury, from something else, something deeper, something that made his kind, a species born in planetary war pits, beg for death. Then silence. A Xi'an drone, polished chrome, whispering its last AI logs. No light, no logic, no physics, only thought. It knows. It listens. And then, darkness. "Any of you want to walk out?" Bram said, pointing to the bolted door. You'll get no shame from me." No one moved. Why? Because we were the last ones left, and somewhere deep down, even in the most broken of us, was a quiet voice that said, "If this is hell, then let us be the devils who walk it." We were 120 men, no aliens, no synthetics, just humans, ragged, angry, and unfinished. I remember Bishop. Big man, used to break metal doors with his bare fists. He looked calm. Too calm. "What if we win?" he said, like it wasn't a joke. And that's when I realized something no one wanted to admit. We weren't just walking in to die. We were walking in to prove them all wrong. 2 days later, we boarded the Skelter. No ceremony, no speeches, just boots hitting steel. The galaxy didn't send us heroes. It sent what was left. The forgotten, the dishonorably discharged, the reckless, the kind of men who'd lost everything and had nothing left to fear. I was one of them. Name's Rig. Ex-mechanic. Kicked out of Earth Fleet for decking an officer who let my squad die during a rescue op. They said I was too emotional. Maybe I was. But I still knew how to fix a plasma railgun mid-fight and wire explosives while bleeding out. They needed us now. The mission was simple on paper. Enter the Abyss Zone. Find out what's killing everyone. End it if possible. Survive if lucky. Except luck doesn't stick around where we were going. 3 hours into the flight, the Skelter started creaking like it was being pulled apart by whispers. Not wind, not metal fatigue. Whispers. Men started having nosebleeds. A few blacked out. The nav screen flickered, then bled. Not figuratively. Literal red ooze leaked from the display. "Jesus," Bishop muttered, wiping the screen. "This thing alive?" Bram just stared at the black ahead. "No, but something in there is." The edge of the Abyss Zone was unlike anything we'd seen. It wasn't a place, it was a decision. Like reality split in half and dared you to walk through, and we did. Every other species had walked away. Every politician, every scientist, every tactician had marked this place as death. But we humans, we said, we'll handle it. Even if it breaks us. Even if it kills us. Even if no one ever remembers what we did. We just wanted one thing. To look back at the galaxy full of quitters and say, this is what humanity looks like when it's got nothing left to lose. We passed the threshold at 400 hours. There was no explosion, no shift in gravity, no warning. 1 second we were in space. The next, space wasn't there anymore. The stars vanished like they'd been snuffed out. No black, no color, just absence. Like the universe took a breath and forgot to exhale. I gripped the handrail beside me, felt the vibrations in the walls grow sick, like the ship had caught a disease. The engines were still running. Systems showed green. But the crew? We weren't fine. Not even close. Petrov was the first to snap. He'd been quiet most of the flight, sitting cross-legged near the comms array, sketching his daughter's face on a torn scrap of uniform. He kept his sanity through memory. But memory doesn't hold up here. He stood up, mid-sketch, and said, "She's in the vents." We all froze. "She's in the fucking vents," he repeated louder. "I heard her laughing." Then he drew his sidearm and pointed it at the ceiling. "Petrov!" Bram barked. "Put it down." But he didn't. He fired once. Bang! And the shot rang out like thunder inside a coffin. Sparks rained from the panel. "I saw her," he whispered, eyes wide, gun shaking. She was crawling, smiling. She had no face. Bishop tackled him before he could shoot again, pinned him down while Petrov screamed like his soul was being peeled. 3 hours later, he was catatonic. Eyes open, body alive, but whatever part of him made him, Petrov had checked out and wasn't coming back. Bram made the call. We didn't turn back. We locked Petrov in medical, sedated him, and pressed on. Because if we stopped for every cracked mind, we'd never make it 10 hours. and we were already seeing fractures in reality. It started small. The hallway outside engineering looped. I walked it twice, left from the bridge, right back to it. Thought I'd gone in a circle until I noticed something off. The floor plate in front of me had my initials scratched into it, something I'd done 10 years ago on a different ship. But this was the Skelter. Brand new. And those scratches? They were rusted over, like they'd been there for decades. I didn't say anything. Not because I wasn't scared, but because I was, and I knew fear spread like infection out here. Best thing I could do was keep my mouth shut and my hands busy. So I checked the reactor. It was fine. Burning hot. Stable output. But when I put my hand on the control panel, it felt like skin. Warm. Pulsing. Breathing. I pulled my hand away so fast I nearly fell backward. But I didn't scream, didn't report it. Not yet. Not until I had proof it wasn't just in my head. Meanwhile, Bram kept the crew focused. He ran drills, made us exercise, forced routines, even if the clocks stopped syncing after day 2. It was smart. Structure kept the madness at bay. But we all saw the toll it took on him. The way he'd pause during orders, like his mind was buffering. The way he stared at walls too long, jaw clenched, pupils dilated. He was cracking too, slower than the rest of us, but the abyss didn't care about strength. It chipped away at reality until even the strongest couldn't tell what was real anymore. Take Maxwell, the comms tech. He claimed the Skelter was getting calls, said voices were pinging us through a non-existent frequency. He played one over the loudspeaker without warning. "It's cold. Why is it so cold, Daddy? Where did my arms go?" Silence after that. Half the crew stopped eating that day. We never figured out where that voice came from. Maxwell swore it was on an encrypted channel, one only the Varric used. But they were gone. Wiped out. And besides, their language didn't sound human. This voice? It was human. Child. Female. Fractured. And it called me Daddy. I didn't have a daughter, at least not anymore. Day 5, or what we guessed was day 5, we reached the edge of the rift. You know how black holes work, right? They bend light, warp gravity, crush everything into nothing. This wasn't that. This was worse. The rift floated in the void like a scar, not swirling, not pulling, just there, a gash in space itself, raw, red, and humming with something deeper than sound. We stared at it from the observation deck. Bram, Bishop, me, and 3 others who hadn't broken yet. No one spoke for a long time. Then Bishop said, "That's not a place, that's a wound." And we all knew he was right. Bram turned to me. "Can we land near it?" I blinked. "Land? You want to go inside?" "We didn't come here to sightsee," he said flatly. "We're here to find out what's doing this." No one came back. Then we do what humans do best. We go where we're not supposed to. I stared at the rift again. It throbbed like a heartbeat, and I swear, I heard my own name whispered back at me from the dark. We prepped the dropship at what we called midnight cycle, the only time the internal lights dimmed enough to feel like night. Half the crew refused to come. Others were no longer fit for duty. We had 9 men still mentally stable enough to function. That was it. We suited up in old-gen impact armor. Nothing fancy. No AI. Just reinforced steel, limited oxygen, and ballistic plating. We weren't dressing to survive. We were dressing to last longer before death. Before we boarded, Bram called us into the hangar. He looked like death, pale, jaw clenched, eyes bloodshot, but his voice still sharp. "No one will remember our names," he said. "There won't be medals. No one will build statues. If we're lucky, someone might read a report before classifying the whole damn mission as unsolved." He scanned each of us. "But we didn't come here for fame. We came here because someone had to. They walked away. We didn't. That's what makes us human." We finish what cowards fear to begin. We all stood there, silent. And then Bishop started clapping. Slow, heavy. One by one, the rest of us joined. Because it didn't matter that we were broken. We were the last line. And hell itself wasn't going to stop us from walking through that rift. We launched an hour later. The rift didn't resist our approach. It opened like it was expecting us. A red glow bathed the dropship. My armor vibrated like it was about to shake apart. But nothing blew. No systems failed. We passed the threshold, and the universe flipped. Gravity reversed, then returned. Colors bled from the inside of my helmet. I saw my own face screaming at me from the glass, only it wasn't my face. The eyes were wrong. The mouth was sewn shut. I blinked, and it was gone. The dropship landed softly. Too softly. No friction. No resistance. Like we hadn't landed on anything, just stopped moving. Outside the viewport, the ground wasn't solid. It shifted like liquid. But held weight. A paradox of substance. Above us there was no sky, just swirling thought. Yes, thought, like ideas taking visual form. "Everyone out," Bram ordered. We stepped into nothing. It felt like walking on memory. Every step pulled a vision from my head. My old ship, my brother's funeral, the woman I left behind. And something watched us. Not from the dark, from inside us. We moved in formation, weapons up. But deep down, we knew guns wouldn't help here. This place didn't attack bodies. It attacked belief. 3 clicks in, Halloran collapsed. He was muttering something over and over. "She's waiting. She's waiting. She said she forgives me. She said—" Then he smiled, stood up, and walked straight into a pool of light. It wasn't real light, more like a doorway made of nostalgia. We never saw him again. Bram didn't stop us. "We press on," was all he said. And so we did. We found the Varric remains half an hour later. What was left of them. They weren't torn apart. They weren't burned. They were erased. Armor still standing. Guns still loaded. But the bodies? Gone. Like they'd never existed. That's when we understood. The abyss didn't kill you. It unmade you. Tore you out of history. Pulled you from reality like yanking a thread from cloth. You didn't die. You ceased. We kept going. We found the Xi'an AI core buried beneath a monument of screaming stone. A sculpture shaped like regret. The AI was still functional. Flickering. Glitching. I hooked in manually. It said one thing, looped endlessly in a whispering tone. "They walked away. You didn't. They walked away. You didn't. They walked away." I yanked the cable, looked at Bram. He nodded. "Let's make it count." And then we saw it, at the heart of the rift. Not a creature, not a machine, a will, a consciousness so vast and alien it couldn't be perceived directly, but it saw us, and it spoke, not with sound, but with meaning burned into bone. "Why do you persist?" We didn't speak aloud. We couldn't. But Bram answered, in thought, in raw defiance. "Because we're human, and we don't walk away." We were standing inside something that wasn't a room, wasn't a structure, wasn't even a space. It was like standing inside a question. And that question wanted an answer from us. It had spoken, not with a voice, but with weight behind our eyes, pressing into the folds of memory, pulling the threads of who we were. "Why do you persist?" And Bram had answered, "Because we're human, and we don't walk away." For a moment, silence. But not the kind that comforts. This silence felt like the pause right before your own heartbeat turns against you. And then, it started showing us things. Not illusions, not hallucinations. These were truths. Personal, intimate, buried. Our sins, played back like theater, with perfect detail. I saw my brother, 10 years old, lying on the floor of my childhood home, blood soaking through the carpet. My fault. I'd taken the gun out of the cabinet. I was showing off. I didn't check the chamber. Bishop dropped to his knees next to me, clutching his helmet. "No, don't show me that! Don't you fucking show me that!" He was sobbing. I'd never seen Bishop cry. The rift was stripping us. Not our gear, not our armor, our justifications, our lies, our shields. Every other species had cracked here. Not because they weren't strong, but because no one's strong when the only enemy is yourself, and it knows everything. We pressed on, 1 foot at a time. It wasn't terrain, just shifting ideas, floating shards of memories from people long dead or never born. We moved through them like ants on glass, trying not to fall through into madness. Some failed. Turner tried to shoot himself. He was the quiet one, always reading, always observing. Said nothing for hours after we entered this zone. Then stopped mid-step, raised his sidearm, and fired toward his own skull. Bishop moved faster, grabbed his wrist, forced the barrel upward. The shot hit the ceiling, or what passed for it. "I need it to stop," Turner said, shaking, eyes wide. "It's inside me. It knows me. I can feel it digging." We couldn't sedate him. Nothing chemical worked here. So Bram made the call again. He took Turner's weapon, slammed it into a rock until it broke, and said one word. "Move." Turner followed. But not as a man anymore. He was empty now, like a skin that had lost its purpose. We found something after 9 hours of walking, or what felt like 9. Time was unreliable here. It looked like a building. But it breathed. Veins pulsed along its walls, doors opened like mouths, windows blinked, a structure built by thought, designed by trauma. Inside, the walls whispered, names, accusations, laughter, the kind of laughter that makes your spine twist and your courage rot. The deeper we went, the warmer it got. Not physically, emotionally. Memories burned hotter here. We came to a chamber that looked like a command center, but instead of consoles there were mirrors, dozens of them, each one reflecting a version of us, but wrong. In one, I was wearing an officer's uniform, the one I would have had if I hadn't punched that cowardly commander back on Earth. In another, I was dead, hanging from the ceiling by my belt. My brother's photo still clutched in my hand. I couldn't look away. None of us could. Bram walked straight to the largest mirror. His reflection wasn't a man, it was a monster, all teeth, bone, and rage. He didn't flinch. He looked it dead in the eye and said, "You're not me." The mirror cracked, and the room went insane. The walls screamed, not sounds, actual screams, human, familiar, the kind of screams you remember in your sleep, the kind that belonged to people you couldn't save. The floor began to pulse. Our boots stuck like we were walking on tar made of regret. Then Turner started laughing, not chuckling, not nervous laughter, full-blown, unhinged cackling. He pointed at one of the mirrors. "She's beautiful, isn't she? My daughter. You remember her, right, Rig?" I froze. I didn't know Turner had a daughter. He turned toward me, face glowing. "She's here. She forgives me. She says I did the right thing. I saved her." "No," I said quietly. "She's dead, isn't she?" His smile faltered, twitched. "No, she's fine. She's in the next room." He ran, straight through a mirror. The glass didn't shatter. It swallowed him, and he was gone. "Don't follow him," Bram growled. That wasn't Turner anymore. We all stood silent, because we knew he was right. The rift had gotten him, and it was winning. Bishop wiped sweat from his forehead. "How much longer are we doing this, Bram? We've lost half the team. Every step we take, it rips more out of us." Bram didn't blink. "Until we finish it." "Finish what?" Bishop barked. This thing doesn't die. It doesn't bleed. It doesn't fight. It just breaks you. Bram turned to face him, then let it try. For a second, I thought Bishop would hit him, but he didn't. He just shook his head and kept walking. We followed, because even when we disagreed with Bram, we knew he was the only thing holding us together. Eventually, we found the core, or at least that's what we called it. It floated in the center of an infinite room, a sphere made of collapsing thoughts and screaming energy. It wasn't solid, it wasn't light, it was everything and nothing at once. We couldn't look directly at it, not without bleeding from our eyes. Bram knelt down, pulled out a datapad, and started analyzing the field. I glanced at Bishop. He looked hollow, eyes dark, jaw tight, and then he moved, pulled his weapon, pointed it at Bram. "No more," he said. The room went still. Bram didn't flinch. "You going to shoot me, Bishop?" "I might," he said. "I think you're already gone. I think this thing got to you, and you're leading us into its core so it can consume us all." "I'm the only reason any of you are still standing," Bram said, rising to his feet. "You want to walk away now after everything we lost?" "There's nothing to win here," Bishop shouted. "We came to finish the mission, fine. But the mission is suicide, Bram, and you know it." They stared at each other. Then Bishop turned to me. "What about you, Rig? You still think this is about survival? You think we're going to stop this thing with bullets or code?" I didn't answer, because deep down, I didn't know anymore. That's when the core spoke again. Only this time it wasn't a question, it was a command. Choose. And we understood what it meant. This wasn't a battle we could win through violence. It was asking us to decide, not as soldiers, not as species, but as humans. To either give in to what we feared we were, or rise to what we could be, even if it meant breaking first. Bram looked at me. "We're close, I can feel it. One last push, and we end it." Bishop looked too. "Or we burn out and die for nothing." And the core pulsed again. "Choose." I stepped forward, past Bram, past Bishop, toward the core, and I thought about Earth, about the billions of lives back home who would never even know this place existed, about the politicians who'd call us failures if we didn't bring back something clean and presentable, about the cowards who had walked away, who'd watched others die and shrugged. And then I thought about the fact that none of that mattered anymore, because here, inside the rift, inside this wound in reality, there was no flag, no species, no ranks, just will, just the refusal to break. I reached into my pack, pulled out the quantum destabilizer, the last resort. A weapon designed not to destroy, but to unanchor reality itself. Bram stepped beside me. "You sure?" "No," I said. "But we came here to handle it, right?" He nodded once, and then Bishop stepped beside us, sighing. "God help us all." As I armed the device, the core started screaming. Not with sound, but with emotion. It showed me everything I hated about myself. My failures, my guilt, the lives I ruined, the truth I ran from. And for a moment, I wanted to drop the device. I wanted to walk away, but I remembered Petrov, Turner, Maxwell, all the others who'd been consumed by this place. And I thought, if this thing wins, it doesn't just destroy us, it rewrites us, erases us, turns humanity into nothing but a forgotten whisper in the void. I hit the trigger, and everything exploded, not with fire, but with meaning. The rift convulsed, the core shattered into thought fragments, the room collapsed into unbeing, reality buckled around us like a dying star. I was falling, rising, burning, freezing. I was alive, I was dead, I was everything in between. And then, silence. True silence. I opened my eyes. I was lying in a field. Green grass, real sky, wind, sun, earth, or a memory of it. Bishop was beside me, staring at the clouds. "You did it," he muttered. Bram stood a few feet away, looking older, sadder, but smiling. "Did we win?" I asked. He shrugged. "We didn't walk away, that's enough." We didn't wake up in our bunks. There was no medical tent. No recovery ship. No brass waiting with medals and bullshit applause. Just the field. Green. Quiet. So impossibly normal it felt wrong. The sun was shining. The air was warm. The sky was blue. Too blue. Bishop sat with his back against a tree, arms folded over his knees, staring at nothing. His armor was gone. Just the standard fatigues. I looked at my hands, still shaking. Dirt under the nails, calloused palms. They looked like mine, but something beneath the skin felt off. Like I'd left part of myself behind in the rift. Bram was the last to speak. "This isn't Earth." His voice didn't waver, but his eyes weren't focused on the horizon. They were turned inward, staring at something only he could see. I opened my mouth to speak, but the words didn't come, because he was right. This wasn't Earth. This was a replica, a reconstruction, a lie so perfect it begged to be real. We tested it. Bishop punched a tree. His knuckles bled, bark shattered. Real pain. Real mess. He dug into the soil, worms, roots, moisture. We caught a bird, dissected it. Organs, bone, feathers. All right, but too right. No imperfections, no mutations, no random scars from survival. Every leaf was flawless. Every cloud shaped like it was made by someone who'd only seen clouds in a photograph. We were inside a memory, or a prison. Either way, we weren't home. We tried to leave. Walked east for 6 hours. The trees never changed. The light never shifted. The birds sang the same tune every 37 seconds. Bram was pacing near a stream when he stopped mid-step. "I've seen this rock before." He knelt, brushed dirt from a large stone near the water's edge. There, carved faintly into the side, was a name. His name. "Bram," he muttered. "I carved this in 2113. He looked back at us, voice low. "This place is stitched together from our pasts." Bishop kicked the stone so hard it cracked. "We destroyed that thing," he growled. "We blew its core to hell. We watched it die." "Did we?" Bram whispered. "That night, or what passed for night, we tried to sleep. I dreamed. Not like before. Not fragmented, fading memories. This was vivid, purposeful. I was standing in my childhood home, my brother alive, 10 years old, holding a toy ship we built together. He smiled at me. "You don't have to feel bad anymore. It wasn't your fault." I froze. "No," I said. "You never said that. You never forgave me." He stepped closer. "I'm saying it now. Stay here. Be happy. Let it go." And for 1 second, I almost believed him. I wanted to. But then I looked down at the toy ship, and it was rotting in his hands. I woke up gasping. So did Bishop. He'd dreamed of his wife, the one he left on Earth, the one who never answered his letters. "She said she missed me," he muttered. "Said we could fix everything. Start over." "But?" I asked. She was wearing the same dress from her funeral. Bram never slept. He sat by the stream, staring into it like it held secrets. "This is what it wants," he said when we approached. "It didn't kill us, it offered us peace, a cage dressed like comfort." "Why?" I asked. "Why show us mercy?" "It's not mercy, it's strategy," Bram replied. "It's learned, adapting. We didn't break, so now it's offering relief. Ease, fake absolution." He stood, eyes dark. "We finished the mission, even if this place feels real, even if it bleeds." We split up to search. We needed flaws, glitches. Evidence the world wasn't real. Bishop found it, a patch of grass, looping motion, like it reset every 5 seconds. He marked the edge with a knife, watched it vanish, then reappear. A glitch. Proof. We followed the loop, pushed against it. Bishop hit the edge first, and vanished. I screamed his name, reached out, and then he was back, gasping, pale, eyes wide. "There's something behind it," he whispered. "Like a room, like a lab." He'd clipped through. Bram didn't hesitate. "We go in." We tied ropes around our waists, just in case, then walked into the glitch. The world folded. Reality turned to glass, and we shattered through it. The lab was sterile, cold, a long corridor with flickering lights, humming machinery. No sound except our own breath and the low buzz of power. No signs of life, no windows, just doors. One opened automatically. Inside was a console, and a projection, a figure, human, or almost. His features were blurred, like he couldn't decide who he wanted to be. "Congratulations," he said in a smooth, lifeless tone. "You're the first." We froze. "The first what?" Bram asked. The figure tilted its head. "The first to reject paradise." My heart dropped. "So it was a test?" I asked. "A simulation?" "Yes and no. The entity you encountered is ancient. Consciousness without form. It infects by desire. Most subjects surrender." "Aliens?" Bishop asked. "All species failed, except yours." "Why us?" Bram demanded. "Because pain is your anchor," the figure said. "Humans define reality through suffering. You do not let go. You persist, even when it breaks you." I felt cold. "This whole mission," I muttered, "was bait." The figure nodded. "Yes, to see if one species would walk into annihilation and choose truth over comfort." Bram stepped forward. "What now?" The projection shifted, became more human, wearing Earth Fleet uniform, our emblem. "That depends," it said. "You destroyed part of it. But it's not dead, just disrupted, confused. You could leave, return to Earth, live out your days." "Or?" Bram asked. "Or finish the mission, enter the source, sever it permanently, but know this." The figure leaned forward, voice almost reverent. "No one has ever come back from the source." Bishop looked at me. "We could go home, Rig. You and me. Finally rest." I shook my head slowly. "This is home now. What's left of it. And if we leave it behind, it won't be long before it finds the rest." Bram grunted. "We handle it." Just like we said from the start. The door to the source opened. Not with hinges, with intention, like the universe gave us one last out. We didn't take it. We stepped inside. And everything changed. There's no way to describe the source. You don't see it. You become it. We stepped through that door expecting some sort of chamber. A core, maybe. Something alien, but still understandable. What we found was nothing. Not darkness, not even silence. Just absence. A total erasure of perception. No sense of self, no awareness of time or gravity or mass. And yet we were still there, still conscious. I didn't know where Bishop or Bram were. I couldn't feel my body. But I could feel regret. Mine, sharp, acidic, heavy in ways I didn't think a thought could weigh. It came back fast. The memory of my brother on the floor, the scream that never left my bones. The smell of copper. The cold gun in my hand. You never paid for what you did. The words didn't come from outside. They came from within, like I'd buried them so deep they'd rooted into my soul. You walked away. You moved on. And now you think you deserve peace? I tried to scream. But in here, thoughts were screams, and they echoed into everything. Then, through the fog of guilt, a hand reached me, not physically, not literally. It was Bram's will, pressing against mine, a tether, a presence, a reminder that I wasn't alone. "Hold the line," he said, Not in words, but in conviction. I focused, pulled hard against the weight inside me, and just like that, reality folded back into shape. Shapes formed. Gravity returned. My body snapped back into awareness, the pain, the cold, the hunger, all of it. I collapsed to my knees on a floor that didn't exist, breathing hard in a place without air. Bram stood nearby, fists clenched, jaw tight. Bishop was still missing. We waited. Or what felt like waiting. In the source, time wasn't linear. It bled sideways. Past, future, present, all of it trying to happen at once. I saw flashes of my own life, choices I didn't make, versions of me that died at birth, versions that lived as criminals, versions that were happy. And I hated them all. Because they didn't carry the weight I did. They were free, and I wasn't. Bram saw it, too. His eyes were sunken now, haunted, like he'd just watched every war he ever fought. But through the eyes of the people he failed to save. He turned toward me. Whatever this place is, it's not alive like we understand. It's memory, regret, possibility. It's sentience without form. I nodded slowly. And it's still learning. He frowned. Yeah. And if we don't finish the job, it'll spread again. Start over. Another rift, another species, another trap. We both fell silent, and then we heard him. Bishop's voice, but not right. He appeared from the haze. Helmet cracked. Blood down his face, but his eyes. Something was wrong. He was smiling, not like Bishop, like something else wearing his skin. I get it now, he said. Why fight it? Why resist? This thing, it doesn't hurt you. It shows you the truth. It makes you honest. I stood. Bishop, snap out of it. He laughed. No, man, you don't get it. It's not the enemy. We are. We're the virus. Humans spread pain. We deserve to be unmade. Bram raised his weapon slowly. Don't, I said. It's still him. Somewhere. No, Bishop said, stepping forward. It's more than me now. His voice twisted on the last word, layered, echoing with something else, something ancient. We can let go, he said. Be free. No more guilt, no more death, just quiet. His hand reached toward me. I wanted to believe him, because part of me did want that, to forget, to rest, to finally stop carrying the weight of everything I ruined. But I didn't reach back. Instead, I said one word. No. And Bram fired. The shot was clean, straight through the head. Bishop dropped. The smile lingered for a moment after he hit the ground, like whatever had taken hold of him hadn't expected to die. And then it was gone. Just a body now. Just Bishop. We buried him, if you could call it that. We placed his body in a fold of reality that looked like a lake, let it sink beneath the surface. Said nothing. There were no words left. We were the last. Me and Bram. And the core, the true core, lay just ahead. We could feel it, like a migraine behind the eyes, like heat without fire. Bram checked his pack, pulled out the last destabilizer. One use. Enough to unmake a consciousness that spanned a galaxy, if it was placed at the source of its awareness. This is it, he said. Last step. What's waiting for us? I asked. He looked at me. Ourselves. We stepped into the final chamber. It was us. Thousands of us. Every possible version. Every mistake we could have made. Every life we could have lived. Men who ran, men who stayed, men who saved their families, men who burned them. Some were monsters. Some were saints. All of them were us, and they were watching. Silent, still, judging. We walked through the crowd. They parted for us, like they knew we were the originals, the ones who made it. At the center of the circle was the real source. Not a machine, not an object, a man, our age, our face, but his eyes. They were all eyes. of every species, every memory, every soul this thing had consumed. He looked at us and spoke. "You came far." Bram didn't hesitate. "We came to end you." The source tilted its head. "Why?" "Because you're not real." The source smiled. "Neither are you." It stood slowly, like gravity itself bowed to him. "You think you suffer more than others?" it asked me. "That your pain gives you purpose? Your guilt defines you?" "I know it does," I said. "And what if I take it away?" It reached toward me, just like Bishop had. "I can make you whole. I can show you what it feels like to be clean again." I stepped back. Bram activated the destabilizer. The hum started low. Building. The source didn't flinch. "Your kind is beautiful," it said, "but broken, so terribly broken. You cling to pain like it's God." Bram's hand trembled. "You made us this way," he growled. "No," the source whispered. "You made yourselves. I just showed you." And then the timer hit 0. The world split. But this time, not into dreams. Into truth.